Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into leather sandals and setting off down the blazing, endless stretch of the Royal Road, a highway so vast and efficient, it made empires tremble and messengers into legends. You're not just anyone. You've just been named a royal courier in the Achaemenid Empire, under the mighty King Darius the Vern himself. But don't get too comfortable. This job is no moonlit stroll. You'll be outrunning storms, bandits, wild dogs, and the king's wrath if you're ever late. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes out there without breaking a sandal strap or getting trampled by your own horse. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Drop that in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start at the western edge of the empire, in Sardis. The sun's still just peeking above the horizon, and already the heat feels like a thick cloak over your shoulders. The air smells like dust, linen, and the faint metallic tang of anticipation. You've been waiting for this assignment for weeks, watching other couriers come and go in their gleaming boots and silken sashes, wondering if you'd ever earn your own saddle, your own name on the list of elite riders. And now, your name's carved into a tiny clay tag that will hang on your bag like a badge of honor. The Royal Road stretches out before you, over 600 miles of beaten track, stone-paved sections, and mountain passes that tie together Sardis in the west with Susa, the pulsing political heart of Persia. It's more than a road, it's a living artery, an imperial superhighway designed not for trade, but for information. Messages, orders, whispers from the king, all flowing faster than any enemy could march. You don't ride alone. Not really. Along this route are Chaperconne relay stations positioned about every 15 to 20 miles. At each one, a fresh horse is waiting. Sometimes food, a little rest, but not too much. Couriers are expected to move with terrifying speed, and the motto of the service echoes in your mind like a drumbeat. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night shall stay these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. That's not just a poetic saying, that's the rule. Your pouch contains a sealed scroll, its wax stamp still intact, and an imperial seal carved into green stone. It's addressed to the satrap of Ecbatana, nestled high in the Zagros Mountains. You're not supposed to know what it says, but the weight of it feels heavier than just ink on parchment. You mount your first horse, a gray stallion bred in the king's own stables, trained not just for speed, but for the chaotic, unpredictable world of royal messaging. It's already saddled with silken-lined leather, its mane braided to keep sweat from dripping into its eyes. You tug the reins gently, and the stallion obeys like you're someone important, which, as of this morning, you are. You're not a soldier, not a diplomat, not a merchant, but you ride faster than any of them, and they make way when you pass. Your uniform is simple but unmistakable. A deep purple sash across your chest marks you as an official courier. The fabric is light, but the color screams status. Only those in service to the king are allowed to wear it. Your leather boots are supple, already rubbed with oil. Your outer robe is dyed with crushed insects imported from India, its deep crimson shade another sign of your new station. As you trot past a cluster of goat herders, one of the older men pulls off his head, covering and bows low. You nod back, suppressing a grin. You haven't done anything heroic yet, but to these villagers, your presence means power. Royal messengers can demand food, water, even shelter, and it is an honor more like a command for locals to provide it. Refuse, and it could mean punishment from the satrap or worse. But most are eager to help. They whisper blessings as you pass. Some even press gifts into your hands, salted dates, thin silver coins, a small carved amulet meant to ward off jackals. One girl offers you a thread tied with a blue bead. Against the evil eye, she says. You tuck it into your sleeve. Hours pass, and the road turns rocky. Your horse snorts, not fond of the incline. You've reached the first elevation, barely a hill to locals, but to your thighs. It's Mount Ararat. By midday, your robe sticks to your back. The sun glints off distant stonework, your first relay station. A chapar khane looks like a mix between a stables and a noble's villa. Inside, a man with a carefully waxed beard greets you by name. He doesn't ask what your message is. He doesn't even look at the scroll. He simply nods, takes your tired horse, and gestures to a younger boy to fetch you water and dates. A new horse is prepared, sleek, jet black, eyes wide. You can already feel the energy vibrating in its muscles. You eat quickly, barely tasting the food, then remount. No time for naps, not yet. By dusk, your muscles ache, and the purple sash itches your shoulder. But you press on. Stars begin to prick the sky, and a breeze cools your damp robe. Somewhere up ahead, smoke curls into the sky from another relay station. You'll stop there. Not for long, just enough to soak your feet and sleep a few hours on a borrowed mat. You mutter to yourself, something you heard an older courier say once: don't stop moving. The king doesn't sleep, and neither should his words. You're beginning to understand what he meant. The next morning arrives quietly, with the sky the color of soft ash and the wind teasing the edge of your robe. You wake before the station master's rooster even thinks about crowing. Your limbs are stiff, your back sore from the hard mat, but your eyes open quickly. That's something you're learning. Sleep comes in thin slices now. A full night's rest is no longer part of the deal. Outside, your next mount stands ready, its breath misting in the early light. This one is a sturdy bay with intelligent eyes, bred for endurance rather than speed. You nod to the boy who prepped it, then swing your leg over and set off again. The sound of hooves tapping rhythmically against the packed dirt. The wind picks up as you ride east. The royal road feels less like a man-made route now, and more like a living thing coiling through valleys, skimming cliff edges, threading between groves of pistachio trees and tall, dry grasses. Villages appear and vanish like thoughts. Farmers pause mid-swing, their sickles frozen in the air as they watch you pass. A few wave. One man even drops to a knee. You're not used to that yet. The power you carry isn't only in the king's seal or the scroll tucked inside your leather case. It's in what you represent. You're part of a system more precise than most armies. A courier's word carries weight. If you claim a man refused your horse food or shelter, the consequences could be severe, which means people are eager to please you, but also wary. You've become something between messenger and monarch, honored and feared in equal measure. By midday, you find yourself approaching a familiar rest point, a shaded grove beside a creek that smells faintly of mint. You dismount and let the horse drink. You sit with your boots off, toes in the stream, and for a brief moment, you remember what it felt like to be someone with no scrolls, no seals, and no expectations, but only for a moment. Because in the distance, a child's voice calls, "Courier," and you know that time's up. You dry your feet, tighten your sash, and mount again. The next leg of the journey will bring you to Ecbatana, your current destination, and with it, the end of your first official assignment. But before you get there, you pass through a mountain village clinging to the cliffs like a stubborn weed. Here, the people don't bow. They don't smile, either. The old woman selling figs barely looks up. This isn't insolence, it's grief. You hear whispers of a fire last week. Half the village burned. You can still smell the char in the stones. You slow down, you don't stop, but you do something unspoken. From your pack, you pull a small pouch of grain, a gift from the last station, and drop it silently on the fig seller's cart as you pass. She doesn't say anything, but you see her blink rapidly, and that's enough. The climb into the mountains begins in earnest now. The air thins. Your horse struggles, breath loud and wet in its throat. The royal road narrows into a serpentine trail marked with chipped stones and the occasional bleached skull remnants of those who weren't so lucky. A fellow courier once said the king's favor didn't help much if you slipped on loose shale and tumbled 600 feet. Still, you press on. Every bend in the trail brings colder air, and stranger sights goats with spiral horns, shrines made of stacked bones, a single pine tree growing sideways out of a cliff. There's beauty here, but a kind that keeps its distance, untamed, sacred. Then you see it, Ecbatana. It appears not like a city, but a crown layers of concentric walls climbing upward in rainbow hues. From the outermost ring of dusty stone to the golden glint of the inner palace, it gleams in the sunlight like a mirage. You've seen drawings, heard stories. None of them prepared you. At the gate, you show your seal. The guards snap to attention. One of them, a young man with mismatched sandals, escorts you through the winding streets. Everywhere, the walls are painted lions, hawks, dancers, stars. You pass a market humming with quiet trade and a public square where a crowd gathers to watch a man juggle knives while balanced on a goat. Finally, you reach the satrap's palace. You dismount, straighten your robe, and step into the shaded hallway. The air is thick with incense and the hush of important things. A eunuch takes your scroll. He doesn't open it. He simply turns and disappears into the next chamber, leaving you standing there, swaying slightly from the ride, unsure whether to sit, kneel, or vanish. Eventually, you're led to a side chamber with wine, cushions, and a basin of cool water for your hands. You're told to wait, so you do. Minutes pass, then more. You begin to count them. At 57, the eunuch returns with something unexpected. A new scroll, a response. You're going back. Your lips are dry as you seal the message into your case. You were hoping for rest, maybe even a night under a real roof, but the king's road waits for no one, not even its fastest feet. As you step outside, dusk folds over the city like a velvet shawl. The torches flicker. The horses shift restlessly in their stalls. You take one last look at the painted walls and the people moving like shadows, then mount again. The second journey begins the moment the first one ends. And this time, the scroll in your case is heavier than the one before, not in weight, but in silence. You ride through the night. The stars wheel slowly overhead as you ride into the night, their cold light shimmering above the jagged silhouette of the Zagros Mountains. The road behind you falls silent, swallowed by dusk, while the road ahead vanishes into shadow. Only the steady rhythm of your horse's hooves keeps time now, each step a heartbeat in the vast, slumbering empire. You're alone, and yet, not quite. The road itself feels alive. It watches, it remembers. And now that you've proven yourself on one full circuit delivering the king's word to Ecbatana and returning with the satrap's sealed reply, something inside you begins to shift. You're not just a novice anymore. You're one of them now, the few, the relentless, the whispered about couriers of the royal road. Your uniform has changed slightly. A thin blue border now lines your sash, embroidered with tiny gold threads. It's not just decoration, it's recognition. Station masters see it and nod a little deeper. Stable boys move faster. One even calls you Shabar, a kind of local slang meaning the king's wind. You don't correct him. With recognition, of course, comes new expectations. This time, your destination is farther, much farther. Susa, the beating heart of the empire, lies to the southeast, surrounded by the sweltering plains that stretch toward the Elamite hills. The scroll you carry is thicker, waxed over twice, and stamped not just with the seal of the satrap, but with a curious symbol you've never seen: a coiled serpent surrounded by 12 dots. You stare at it as you ride, wondering who besides the king can use such a mark, and why it was hidden beneath a second layer of wax. You don't ask questions, but you do think about them. Midway through your journey, you find yourself pausing in a village tucked among tamarisk trees. The air is dry, filled with the scent of baking bread and warm clay. Children race behind your horse, laughing and pointing. One little boy hands you a handful of raisins in a palm still dusty from the fields. You thank him with a nod and press onward, your saddlebag swaying softly at your sides. But you notice something odd here. Every time you pass someone older than 30, they turn away, not rudely, almost reverently, as though looking directly at you might invite misfortune. It's subtle, but you've learned to pay attention. That night, when you rest at the Chaparkhane, the The station master leans in and speaks in a low voice while pouring you tea. They say the seal you carry, he murmurs, means the message inside is about the air. You pause, cup halfway to your lips. The air, he nods. To the throne. Word is, the king's health is waning. That scroll might name who comes next. You set the cup down slowly. The seal, the strange wax, the quiet deference in every village since Ecbatana. It all clicks into place. And now, suddenly, the scroll in your pouch no longer feels like just a scroll. It feels like a sword dangling by a single hair, poised above the neck of an empire. You imagine 1,000 eyes watching you now, not out of curiosity, but calculation. If this message falls into the wrong hands, you stand before dawn and ride harder than you ever have. Dust kicks up in a golden haze behind you. You change horses so fast, you barely catch their colors. You sleep in short, aching bursts, your head still buzzing with unspoken possibilities. By the time you reach the southern plains, the air has turned thick and oppressive. Your robe clings to your skin, soaked through. The land flattens into a baked stretch of ochre and gray, and Sousa finally rises before you, low, sprawling, sun-bleached, and quietly formidable. At the gate, you dismount, boots hitting the earth with a thud that feels final. You walk the rest of the way, inside the palace complex. Marble gleams beneath your feet. Gold veins run through the columns. The air smells of frankincense and something else, something like aged parchment and old decisions. You're led to an inner court where high-ranking scribes whisper behind screens. None of them meet your eyes. The man who takes your scroll is taller than most, clean-shaven, and dressed in a robe without insignia. That alone tells you everything. No badge means power beyond rank. Someone who serves not a title, but the throne itself. He takes the scroll without speaking. No question, no thanks. He turns and vanishes through a green lacquered door. You don't see him again. But before you leave, another courier appears. Older, scarred. His gaze settles on you with the weight of a seasoned gambler, appraising a new opponent. You carried it, he asks. Simply, you nod. He squints toward the horizon. Then they'll remember your name. You wait for a moment, expecting something more, an explanation, a story, even a smile. But he just walks away, the tails of his robe brushing the marble like quiet thunder. You're given a few hours of rest, clean linens, a cold basin for your feet, a silver plate of apricots and soft cheese. You don't touch any of it. Instead, you sit by the open window, watching the birds circle the courtyard, and you wonder not for the first time what it means to be trusted with a message that could change everything, a whisper that might start a war, or end one. Outside, a low drum sounds. The next mission is ready, and your name is already on the list. By the time you swing yourself onto the next horse, the sky has shifted again no longer, the smoky glare of midday, but a dim, simmering glow, the kind of light that makes shadows look longer, as if the world itself is stretching with fatigue. You don't know exactly what's waiting at the end of this ride, only that it begins the moment you cross the outer ring of Sousa's palace and leave its marble silence behind. The road that unfolds before you now is flatter, straighter, and hotter than anything you crossed before. It's as if the gods themselves dropped a griddle across the empire, then invited you to sprint across it. The plains here are endless. Dust dances like spirits in the heat. Your robe clings to your back before you've gone a mile. This time, the scroll you carry is small, no thicker than a finger. A red cord binds it, and the wax seal bears the image of an eagle with open wings. You weren't told its contents. You never are. But the stable boy who handed it to you wouldn't meet your eyes, and the guard who opened the outer gate murmured, "Be quick," as if delay were more dangerous than the road itself. You ride through villages that feel more like mirages, structures made of sun-dried mud, goats sleeping in the shade, people who don't wave, who don't smile, they simply watch. In some places, they whisper as you pass. In others, they step aside without a word. In one village, You stop only to change horses. But as you mount the new mare, a pale dappled thing with sharp eyes, a man places something in your saddlebag. You look down, but he's already walking away. No explanation, no name. You check the bag. Inside is a handful of rose petals. Fresh. It's strange and beautiful and completely unexplainable. You leave them where they are. The road narrows again, winding now through thick groves of tamarind trees and tall reed beds. You hear frogs. A heron flaps skyward. You duck instinctively as it passes low overhead, your horse shuddering slightly beneath you. It's only then you realize how quiet the road has become. No other couriers, no caravans, not even ox carts. You're completely alone, moving like a shadow through a landscape that feels half dream, half trap. Then you spotted a relay station, smaller than usual, just one building, flat-roofed, with a single lantern swinging at the doorway. You dismount, knock. A voice calls, enter, inside. The room smells of cedar and boiled lentils. An old man sits cross-legged by the hearth, staring into the flames. His beard is long, his robe unbelted, and he looks more priest than station master. He doesn't rise. You're late, he says. You glance at the wall-mounted sundial. You're early. I left Sousa only 6 hours ago. You reply. The old man doesn't argue. Instead, he gestures toward the window. Ride at night. The heat will kill your horse before the next stop. You don't ask how he knows your destination. You simply nod. Outside, the lantern's flame flickers. You eat a handful of salted nuts, refill your water flask, and stretch beneath the awning until the last color bleeds from the sky. When the stars are sharp again, you ride. You move fast now, hooves barely touching earth, cutting through moonlight and shadow. Jackals bark in the distance. The wind changes thick with scent, not flowers, not fire, salt. Ahead. The land begins to drive further, the air turning crusty in your mouth. You're entering desert country now, close to the shores of the Great Salt Plain. The royal road here is faint, nearly invisible, but your horse knows it, or maybe you do. Somehow, at dawn, you reach another station, this one carved partially into rock. You rest, rinse your face, trade the dappled mare for a wiry stallion with anxious feet. As you prepare to ride again, a boy runs up to you with a folded scrap of papyrus. You take it silently. It reads, "Do not stop at the temple. Ride past. Eyes are watching. There's no signature." You fold the note and burn it in the brazier beside the door. The temple is exactly where the road bends eastward. It's old Zoroastrian, with walls darkened by centuries of fire. You smell incense as you approach, and the faint singing of priests. One lifts his hand in welcome. You don't stop. You nod once, politely, and ride on. You don't look back. You ride for hours. And though the scroll in your bag is smaller than any you've carried, its presence presses harder against your spine. Every bump in the road feels like a question. Every bird cry a warning. Finally, just as the sun begins to tilt westward, you reach your stop, a garden complex nestled beside a shallow river. Trees bent low with dates and pomegranates. You've arrived not at a city, not at a fort, but at a house, a private estate, hidden. Servants in dark robes take your horse. A woman in a plain headscarf gestures you inside without a word. The man waiting for you is not a satrap, not a priest, not a general. He's something else entirely. He stands barefoot in a shaded room, fingers stained with ink, hair long and loose. He does not rise to greet you, but he studies you, as if weighing something. You hand him the scroll. He breaks the seal, reads in silence, then, softly, he says, "Good." You don't ask what it said. He sets it in the fire. Then he looks at you again. They say you rode through fire temples and didn't blink, that you carry silence like a blade. You say nothing. He nods once. "Go back. Take this." He hands you a new scroll. No seal, no cord, just a name scribbled in a slanted hand. Deliver it and forget the path. You bow, leave, and as you ride away through the orchard gates, the sun catches something in the distance. Rose petals, scattered along the road behind you. You don't remember sleeping. Maybe you didn't. Maybe the saddle became your bed and the wind your blanket. Because when the morning sun reaches your face, it feels like you've been riding for centuries. Your hands ache from gripping the reins. Your thighs are numb, and your eyes feel grainy, as if someone's rubbed dust into your sockets. Still, you ride. The new scroll is different. No wax, no ribbon, no emblem of eagle or serpent, just a name, hastily written in dark ink. Whoever this is meant for, it's not official, it's not recorded, and that's what makes it feel heavier than anything you've carried so far. You pass through a town you've never seen marked on the courier charts, a narrow cluster of beige homes built low against the earth, as if trying to hide. No station here, no relay post, but there is a well, and you stop to let your horse drink. A woman watches you from a doorway. She holds a clay pot but doesn't move, doesn't blink. It's not fear, it's recognition. She knows what you are. Before you mount again, she walks forward and presses a bundle of cloth into your hand. You begin to protest, but she shakes her head. For the heat, she says simply. You unwrap it, dates, a pinch of salt, and a strip of linen dampened with something that smells like mint and vinegar. You press it to your neck, and your skin sighs. You whisper your thanks. She is already gone. Back on the road. The land begins to flatten into something new, almost featureless. Not quite desert, not quite field, a liminal space. The kind of landscape that feels half-formed, where sound carries too far and time forgets to pass. It's harder to keep pace here, not because of danger, but because the sameness starts to dull your instincts. You blink and realize you've ridden half a day without recalling a single thought. A hawk cries overhead. The spell breaks. The road curves again, and up ahead, a station appears larger than the last, built of gray stone with 3 arched doorways and a small tower. You dismount and hand over your horse, then stretch your legs and splash water on your face. Inside, a boy brings figs and flatbread, and you eat them in silence while staring at the floor. The bread is sweet. The figs are warm. A courier sleeps on a mat in the corner, face turned to the wall, back rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. His sash is dark green, marked with a copper pin in the shape of a leaf. A forest courier, probably. One of the few who knows the roads that twist through the northern jungles. You've never spoken to one before. You wonder if he dreams of trees. You leave before sunset. The road now winds downward into a lush valley, greener than anything you've seen in weeks. The scent of water clings to the air, and the sound of frogs and insects fills your ears. You pass a wooden shrine painted with the sun and moon locked in a quiet embrace. Someone's left fresh bread there, and a jar of honey. You don't stop, but you do slow. Not every message is for a king, and not every courier needs a crown. At the bottom of the valley lies a village surrounded by flowering hedges. There are no guards, no gates, no signs of rank. You're just a traveler here, a dusty man on a tired horse. Still, when you knock on the door marked with the same slanted name as your scroll, it opens before your hand falls away. A woman stands there, middle-aged, worn at the edges, but with eyes so sharp they could slice clean through armor. She says nothing, only holds out her hand. You place the scroll in it. She reads it there in the doorway. Her lips press into a line. When she's done, she tucks it into her sleeve and nods once. "Come in," she says. You hesitate, but something in her voice doesn't allow refusal. Inside, the house is cool and dark. The air smells like herbs and ink. There are no guards, no statues, no sign that this woman is anything but ordinary. And yet, the way she moves, the way she doesn't speak unless necessary, tells you otherwise. "You've ridden far," she says finally. "Too far to turn back today." She leads you to a room with a woven mat and a jug of lemon water. You sit slowly, your knees cracking with the effort. "I'll send word that you've arrived," she adds, "and that you didn't ask questions." You nod. She doesn't smile, but she places a folded blanket beside you. You don't know what's in the scroll. You don't want to. But judging by the silence that follows it, the message wasn't a request. It was an answer. When you wake the next morning, she is gone. But a new horse waits outside, saddled and brushed, with a new pack strapped behind the saddle. There's no scroll this time, only a single copper coin, resting in the stirrup. The coin bears no emperor's face. Just a sunburst and a line of tiny dots. You pocket it and ride. The road rises again, this time into foothills dotted with olive trees and ancient ruins, pillars leaning like drunk philosophers, half-buried statues with lips worn smooth by centuries of wind. You pass a shepherd who offers you cheese from a tin bowl. You pass a group of traveling performers rehearsing lines in a strange dialect. Then, just before dusk, you reach the edge of a ridge and stop. Below, the sea spreads out like melted bronze. You've never seen the ocean before. You dismount and stand there for a long time, letting the wind wrap itself around your shoulders like a shawl. The road will continue. You know that. But for now, you let your horse rest and watch the waves. The sea moves like it's breathing, in, out, silver and blue, and you, standing on the ridge above it, feel for the first time that the empire does not go on forever. There is a boundary here, not a wall, not a gate, but something deeper. A hum in your chest that says, beyond this. The rules change, but there's still a message to deliver, even when the path becomes unclear. You ride down toward the shore, hooves sinking into looser soil with each step. A line of palm trees sways in the breeze, casting rippling shadows across the sand. The air smells strange salt and kelp and something distant, like iron. The sky above is pale lavender now, the color of quiet endings. At the base of the hill, a fishing village waits. No walls, just reed huts, stone ovens, nets drying in the sun. People glance up as you pass, then return to their work. You're not the first courier they've seen, and judging by the worn look in their eyes, you won't be the last. The man you're looking for is sitting on a stool beside a boat turned upside down. His hands are busy mending a net, and he doesn't look up when you stop. You're late, he says. You weren't told you were coming here. You weren't told who he was. But somehow, he knew you'd arrive. You dismount slowly, no message this time. He nods once, still tying knots. Then you're here to listen. You pause. To what? Everything else. He gestures to the sea. You don't understand, but you sit. For a while, there's only silence, and the rhythmic tug of waves against the sand. Then he begins to speak, not to you exactly, but into the air, as if reciting something half-remembered. Once, he says, the couriers carried not just words, but balance. The weight of what could be. You delivered not messages, but outcomes. You remain still. I used to ride too, he adds. Long ago, before the scrolls got thicker, and the horses faster, back when we were still expected to think. You glance at him now. His face is marked by sun and wind. His eyes are steady, unreadable, like a coin held between fingers, waiting to flip. Historians still argue, he says, whether the couriers shaped the empire or whether the empire simply used them. You breathe that in, then he hands you something not a scroll, but a small wooden box. For the next leg, he says, don't open it. You nod, slipping the box into your pack. It's surprisingly light. You leave the village before first light. No one sees you go. The tide has receded, leaving streaks of silver across the sand. As you ride, the box presses softly against your side, like a second heartbeat. The next station is far farther than usual. It lies at the base of a range you've only heard about in passing. Mountains called the Teeth by locals, where the wind screams through the canyons and the road narrows to the width of a mule's shadow. It's the kind of place where messages go to vanish or change. You pass a man on foot unusual on this route. He carries no tools, no pack, just a scroll case slung across his back and a knife at his belt. He nods once, west winds shifting. You nod back, though you're not sure what that means. It rains that night. A short, sharp downpour that soaks everything in minutes and disappears just as quickly. The lightning flashes like memory, brief and blinding. You take shelter beneath a crumbling outpost wall, one of the old ones, built before the empire stretched this far. Moss grows in its cracks. Names are carved into its stone. You run your fingers across one ashan. No date, just a name. You light no fire, eat no food. The box remains unopened. By morning, the path has washed away. Mud clings to your boots. The horse struggles, slipping once on a patch of shale. But you press forward, step by cautious step. Eventually, the road reappears narrow, winding, and marked with faded stone columns etched with suns and serpents. This isn't the royal road anymore. This is something older, forgotten, maybe. You feel it in your bones. Midday brings heat again, this time dry and biting. Your lips crack, your hands feel brittle, but the box remains cool, untouched. You find the next station carved into the side of a cliff. No front door, just an open archway and a carved lintel bearing the word Amarin, a name, a warning, or both. Inside, a woman greets you, older, barefoot, eyes sharp as flint. You're not the usual courier. You bow slightly, no. She gestures to the stone bench. Wait. You sit. Time slows. You trace the veins in the rock with your eyes. The light from outside flickers, casting strange shadows on the floor. It smells of sage and something metallic. After what feels like an hour, she returns. They're ready. You rise, expecting to be handed a message, a scroll, a set of orders. But instead, she says, "Give me the box." You hesitate. Just a moment, then hand it over. She opens it without ceremony. Inside is a piece of cloth, folded, embroidered. She doesn't show it to you. Instead, she nods and says, "Good." That was the message. You feel something loosen in your chest. Relief, confusion, maybe both. She offers you water, a piece of honeyed bread, then asks, "Where will you go next?" And for the first time since you joined the courier ranks, you answer honestly, "I don't know." She smiles. Then it's time you started choosing. You ride out that evening with no scroll, no box, and no destination. Just a name in your mind, Ashan, etched in stone, waiting. You say the name Ashan aloud as you ride, as if speaking it might point you in the right direction. The syllables don't belong to any city on your route maps, and none of the old station logs mention it, yet you can't shake the feeling that it's familiar, not from training or from other couriers, but from somewhere older, like a story you heard as a child but didn't understand until now. You ride northeast, following instinct more than compass, hugging the foothills where the air turns cooler and the trees grow closer together. The roads here are narrow and overgrown. Once polished milestones now sit crooked in the moss, half swallowed by time. You pass fewer and fewer people. The last soul you see for a full day is a man leading a donkey with pots strapped to its sides. He nods once, without stopping, and says only one thing as he passes, still looking for it. 2. You don't ask what it is. Somehow, you already know. Ashan isn't on the maps because it isn't a destination. Not in the usual sense. It's not a city, or a station, or a province. Ashan, you begin to suspect, is a memory, a thread woven into the very foundation of the courier road itself. The sky darkens early. Storm clouds roll in like bruises, heavy and low. You find shelter beneath an ancient stone archway, crumbled, forgotten, half covered in ivy. There's no roof, just the remains of a gate to somewhere that no longer exists. You rest there for the night, wrapped in your cloak, your horse tethered close, ears flicking at every sound. Rain falls lightly, the kind that doesn't soak but settles, dampening everything, including your thoughts. You lie awake for a while, staring at the carved stones above you. Someone once etched a symbol into the keystone, a crescent moon nested inside a circle of thorns. Not royal, not official, something older. You sleep without realizing it. And when you wake, the rain has stopped. The world smells clean, green, and quiet. You continue northeast, letting the terrain lead you. The road narrows, rises, then vanishes entirely. But you ride on, Because now your destination isn't a place on a scroll. It's a question echoing louder with every mile. Just before noon, you reach a clearing. The trees give way to grass so tall it brushes your legs as you ride through. And in the center, half covered in vines and nettles, stands a single stone pillar. It's not part of a temple. It's not a mile marker. It's a grave. You dismount and approach. The grass rustles softly. Insects buzz lazily in the air. The inscription on the pillar is worn nearly smooth, but 3 letters remain clear. Ash. You press your fingers to the stone. It's cool, ancient. There are no offerings nearby, no flowers, no coins, just the silence of something long, long gone. But you can feel it. Whoever Ashen was, man, place, legend, they mattered. Enough for someone to carve a marker, enough for the word to echo, even now. Your horse nudges your shoulder gently. The wind stirs the grass. You take a deep breath and turn away, but not without murmuring a promise. To remember, to ask, to carry the name forward. Back on the move, you ride west now, returning to territory that's at least faintly charted. Along the way, you spot signs of older courier roads, paths abandoned, detoured, overgrown with brambles. At one bend in the trail, you find a rusted horseshoe, half buried in the soil, green with age. You don't take it. You leave it where it is, like a breadcrumb for the next rider who decides to go off map. At the next relay station, this one tucked beneath a sloping hill, you're greeted not with nods or curt protocol, but with curiosity. Where have you been? The station keeper asks, squinting. You look like you've been chasing ghosts. You don't answer directly. You simply offer a tired smile and request water for your horse. As you refill your canteen, a young boy approaches. Barefoot, covered in dust. He holds a small wooden plaque in both hands and offers it to you without saying a word. You take it. Carved into the surface is a crude map, handmade, uneven, clearly scratched with a dull knife. It's not one of the Empire's official route charts. It shows rivers that don't appear on your scrolls, villages not labeled, landmarks that feel more like riddles than directions. But there, at the top, just above a sketched crescent moon, is one word, Ashan. You look up. The boy is already gone. You keep the plaque. That evening, a scroll arrives. A formal one, delivered by another courier, this one older, gaunt, with a silver sash that glints in the firelight. He doesn't speak, just hands over the message and nods once before disappearing into the night. You break the seal. Your new assignment: travel east to Bactra. Deliver a sealed message to the satrap. The route is straightforward, dangerous in parts, but well established. 3 relay stations. No detours, but the message carries a postscript in a different hand. One that reads, trust no one near the satrap's court. Observe carefully. Report everything upon return. You reread that line 3 times. You've delivered hundreds of scrolls by now, carried messages for governors, priests, generals, even whispers for the king himself. But this is different. You're not just a courier anymore. You're a witness. You don't sleep much that night. Instead, you sit by the fire, holding the wooden plaque and tracing the lines with your thumb. You wonder if Ashen was once like you, if he rode these same roads, sent into the shadows to listen, to look, to carry more than words. You tie the plaque into your saddlebag before dawn, and when the sun rises, you ride east with the satrap's sealed scroll in one hand and a forgotten map in the other. The empire is wide, but the truth is wider. The sun breaks across the plains as if someone split the sky open with a blade. Light pours over the land in thick golden waves, making even the dry shrubs shimmer like they've been dipped in honey. You lean forward in the saddle, already sweating through your robe, the weight of the sealed message from Saza pressing against your chest like a silent command. Bactra lies days ahead, nestled in the eastern reaches of the empire, where the hills roll low and wide like sleeping lions. It's a place of power, home to traders, soldiers, and secrets tucked behind every carved column. You've heard stories of the satrap there. His name is whispered more than spoken aloud, and when people do mention him, they tend to glance over their shoulders. The postscript on the scroll, the warning echoes louder in your thoughts than the hoofbeats under you. Trust no one. Observe everything. You've carried dangerous messages before. Yes. But this one feels different. It's not just about speed or discretion. It's about presence. You are the message this time, whether you realize it or not. By mid-morning, the road narrows into a winding pass through low ridges of sandstone. The wind kicks up dust in playful, stinging bursts. You squint ahead and spot something unusual. A broken-down cart, wheels snapped, axle bent, with two goats tied loosely to a nearby bush. No driver in sight. You slow. Your fingers inch toward the dagger at your hip. The blade more ceremonial than practical, but still sharp. You circle the cart, keeping your distance, no movement, no footprints fresh in the sand. Then you spotted a smear of something dark trailing from the far side of the cart into the brush. You don't follow it. Whatever happened here, it's done. And whoever caused it might still be watching. You urge your horse onward, leaving the wreckage behind, but it nags at you. The image of that trail, the silence of the scene. Not everything on the road is as it appears, and some traps are set not to catch you, but to watch how you react. That evening, you reach the next chopper khane, a stout building of sun-baked brick built into the rock. The keeper is a small man with eyes like polished stone and a voice as dry as the wind. Heading to Bactra, he asks, already knowing the answer. You nod. He studies you a moment longer, then says, "Be careful who greets you at the gate. Sometimes, it's not the satrap you meet first. It's who he wants you to see." You stay silent, but the words lodge in your mind like a seed in cracked earth. That night, you sleep lightly. A dream comes, one where the scroll in your pouch unseals itself, unfurls like a serpent, and hisses words you don't understand. You wake before dawn, your heart thudding harder than a war drum. You set off early. As the land flattens into a wide plateau, signs of the satrap's territory appear more clearly, guards in patterned cloaks, waystones marked with the seal of Bactra, and even a few carved lions standing sentinel along the roadside. The Empire's reach here feels heavier, less a network and more a grip, tighter, sharper. At midday, you arrive at the outer gates of Bactra. They rise before you like a fortress, a double wall of stone with gold-tipped spires and banners fluttering in the heat. Soldiers greet you, faces unreadable beneath bronze helms. One holds out his hand, scroll. You hesitate. I was told, you say evenly, to deliver it directly to the satrap. The guard says nothing, but another figure approaches a woman dressed in fine robes, her hair braided with tiny amber beads. She carries herself like someone who owns the horizon. "This way," she says. You follow her through the gates, down a corridor lined with painted tiles that shimmer in the shifting light. The scent of jasmine fills the air, mingling with something colder metal, maybe, or ink. You're led into a waiting chamber round, high-ceilinged, with murals of stars and constellations above. No throne, no guards, just cushions, a low table, and a plate of dates arranged in an elaborate spiral. The woman gestures, "Wait here," she leaves, and then silence. You sit, you wait. Minutes pass, then longer. The room seems to breathe around you. Finally, the satrap enters. He isn't tall, he isn't grand, but he carries stillness like a weapon. His robe is plain white, marked only with a brooch in the shape of a flame. His eyes settle on you, sharp and curious. You're the courier from Susa. You rise and bow, then hand him the scroll. He breaks the seal, reads, frowns. Then he looks up and says, "Tell me, who gave you this?" You hesitate. "No one I knew." You answer truthfully. He studies your face. "Do you know what it says?" "No." "Would you like to?" You pause. "That's not my place." The satrap smiles slightly. Not warmly, not cruelly, just enough to unsettle you. "You're right," he says. "But sometimes, the road brings you to places where roles shift, where messengers become witnesses." He folds the scroll, and witnesses become problems. A chill settles in your chest. Your mouth is dry. You'll stay the night. He continues. Tomorrow, I'll decide whether to send a reply. You don't argue. That evening, you're given a room. Comfortable, quiet, too quiet. No lock on the door, no torch in the hallway, just you in the shadows. You don't sleep much. At some point near midnight, a knock comes, a voice whispers from the other side. Courier. If you value your life, don't wait for the reply. You don't ask who it is. You gather your things in silence, slip out under the half moon, past the painted tiles and sleeping guards, back to the road. Again, the scroll may be delivered, but the message is far from over. You don't run, but you don't walk either. You move like water slipping between stones, quick and quiet and sure of your path. The gates of Bactra are closed for the night, but that doesn't stop someone like you. Not anymore. You bypass the main road and weave through a narrow alley that smells of old bread and burning oil. A low wall, a forgotten ledge, the bracing creak of wood beneath your sandals, and then you're on the other side of the city, under the moon, riding hard into the dark. You don't stop until dawn stains the horizon in shades of iron and clay. Only then do you breathe. The road behind you feels stretched and taut, as if still clinging to your heels. You ride until the sound of birdsong replaces the phantom echo of whispered threats. When you finally slow, your legs ache, your mouth tastes of dust, and your horse flanks shimmer with sweat. But you're alive. And that's more than you expected when the satrap asked, "Would you like to know what it says?" Whatever was in that scroll wasn't just a report. It was bait, a test, or a warning. And you, just the messenger, had wandered into a den of tigers thinking it was a court. You guide your horse toward a grove of olive trees, shaded and soft underfoot, and dismount. There's no station here, but you find water trickling between rocks, cool and clean. You drink slowly, splash your face, and press your ear to the wind. Nothing follows, not yet. You don't head toward the next station, not right away. Instead, you follow a memory, a quiet path branching off to the left. The old road. The one not marked on any map. The one Ashan's crude wooden plaque hinted at. You fish it from your saddlebag, the ridges of the carving familiar beneath your fingers. It's not a real map, not exactly, but it's close enough for someone who now travels more by instinct than instruction. The path is rough, overgrown, barely there, but the signs are unmistakable stones arranged in strange spirals, trees with symbols etched low on their trunks, moss-covered ruins that seem to lean toward you like they're trying to whisper. This is not the King's Road. It's something older. You find the next message not in a scroll case, but in a tree. It's a birch, split open by lightning long ago. Inside the hollow, tucked into a dry space lined with straw, is a small roll of leather cord. Wrapped around it, a scrap of linen. You unroll it. If you made it out, go north. Tell no one. Trust only names carved in stone. No signature, no seal, just clarity. You don't ask how they knew you'd come this way. You ride north. By now, the rhythm of the road lives inside you. Eat little, drink often. Let the horse guide you when your legs can't. Sleep lightly, listen always. The empire may have walls, but the messages that matter, the ones that truly shift the world, they travel quietly, carried by riders who leave no footprints. 2 days pass, you speak to no one. You pass only 2 others, a shepherd with a flute, and a woman balancing a jar on her head who hums a lullaby older than memory. On the 3rd morning, you find what you weren't sure existed. A stone marker, tall, cracked, leaning east, carved into it, barely legible beneath years of wind and sand. Ashan, no prefix, no title, just the name. Like a bell rung once and never forgotten. You dismount and walk the rest of the way. Beyond the marker, the land opens into a shallow valley choked with wild grass and crooked olive trees. In the center stands a circular structure, half buried. Roof collapsed, but unmistakably deliberate. Not a ruin, a resting place. You approach slowly, no guards, no gate, no altar. But there are signs of recent passage scraped earth. ash from a fire, a sliver of cloth snagged on a thorn bush. You kneel by the doorway, what's left of it, and feel along the stone. There, carved in small, careful strokes, a message. We are what we carry. You close your eyes. This isn't a palace. It's not a shrine. It's a memory etched in stone and earth, meant for those who walk without being seen, those who ride without being followed. This was Ashan's final station, not a person, perhaps, but a code, a legacy, a reminder. Someone steps from behind the stone. You don't reach for your blade. You simply nod. They nod back. No names, no questions, but they hand you a satchel, sealed in wax unmarked. You've carried many like it before, and yet, this one feels different. There's no imperial emblem, no hint of who it's for. And still, you take it. You don't ask who it's meant for, because deep down, you already know. You mount again, the wind picks up. The grass parts softly as your horse moves forward. You follow the unmarked road, through trees older than nations, past forgotten stones and sleeping gods. You don't know where this one ends, but that's never stopped you before. Because in the space between roads, between orders, between the silence of what's said and what's carried, that's where you live now, and you ride on. The sky overhead is a vast dome of pale blue, stretched so wide it almost feels like it's leaning in to listen. You ride beneath it in silence, the wax-sealed satchel tucked into your pack like a second spine. It doesn't rattle, doesn't shift. Whatever's inside, it's small and very, very still. You don't open it. You've long since stopped wondering, not because you're not curious, but because you've come to understand some messages aren't words. They're trust. And trust doesn't like to be questioned. The land rises gently now. Rolling hills give way to cliffs, then to open plains dappled with thorn bushes and ancient ruins so worn down they look like melted candles. There are no waymarkers here, no posts, no carved milestones, only a faint trail of hoofprints, barely pressed into the earth. You follow them. The morning passes. Around midday, your horse slows on its own, ears pricking forward. Up ahead, a figure walks the road alone, cloaked, hood drawn low. You rein into a careful stop. The figure doesn't turn, doesn't flinch, just keeps walking. After a moment, you follow, you keep your distance, a dozen paces behind, then 10, then 8. Finally, the figure stops. You stop, 2. They turn. It's a man, young, but his eyes have seen things. His cloak is tattered, and there's a scar across his chin, shaped like a hook. He doesn't speak. He just points to your saddlebag. You nod, dismount, and carefully remove the satchel. He reaches into his robe and pulls out a clay tablet, about the size of your palm. On it, etched in hurried lines, is the same emblem you saw in Susa, the coiled serpent surrounded by 12 dots. You hand over the satchel. He places the clay tablet in your hand in exchange. You expect him to say something. He doesn't. He turns and walks back the way he came, vanishing into the dust as silently as he arrived. You sit back in the saddle and examine the tablet. It's heavy for its size. Old clay, the kind fired in a hearth rather than a kiln. On the back, there's a single word scratched in just one, in Persian script, barely legible. Return. You slide the tablet into your pouch, and something inside you clenches. You were hoping, perhaps, to keep going forward, to trace the ancient paths until they fell away into legend. But this is clear. You're going back west, back through the same roads, now changed. The journey takes you into hills shadowed by cypress trees and the sound of rushing water. You pass an abandoned outpost, its door hanging crooked, the smell of old fire still clinging to the stone. You sleep in its remains one night, curled beside your horse, who keeps one ear twitching even in sleep. In the morning, you find a strange pattern outside the entrance stones, arranged in a spiral, with a single feather in the center, not a warning, a greeting, or a thank you. You don't disturb it. You ride on. By the third day, the wind begins to shift. From the east, it carries a scent of burning wood-controlled fires, likely from villages clearing fields. But it stirs something in you, a memory, uninvited, a different wind, a different fire, and the words the old man at the sea had once told you. We delivered not messages, but outcomes. You wonder what outcome you just handed to the man on the road. You pass through familiar groves and unfamiliar silences. The same roads are not the same twice. Even the dust feels different when you return. One afternoon, just before reaching the western bend of the Sousa Road, you come upon a group of children playing near a dry creek bed. They've built little towers of stacked stones, trying to mimic the royal milestones. When they see you, they scatter, giggling, but one girl lingers. She walks up to you and offers something wrapped in leaves. You open it, a small cake, barely held together, made of figs and honey and flour. For the king's runner, she says, beaming. You smile back, the first time in days. You ride on, the sweetness of the cake lingering on your tongue. By dusk, Sousa rises on the horizon again, low and sprawling, its spires lit gold by the setting sun. You slow your horse. You expected relief, but what you feel instead is stillness, a quiet inside you, like the moment before rain. You check your pouch. The clay tablet is still there. When you reach the outer gate, the guard's face changes the moment he sees the seal on the tablet. He doesn't ask for your name, doesn't check your satchel. He simply says, "You're expected." You're led not through the front halls, but around the side, into a smaller wing of the palace. It smells like dust and ink and something faintly metallic. An older man with a shaved head meets you in a narrow corridor. His eyes don't waver. He holds out his hand. You give him the tablet. He nods once. Then he says, "You'll speak to the king." You blink. The king now. You follow him through passageways that twist and descend, the noise of the palace fading behind you until there's only your breath and the tap of sandals on stone. At last, you emerge into a small, windowless chamber lit by oil lamps. And there he is, Darius, the king of kings. He sits alone, no throne, no guards. Just a low table with a scroll half unrolled and a cup of wine untouched beside it. He doesn't rise. He just looks at you. "You carried a name that no one speaks anymore," he says quietly. "You followed roads not drawn on any map, and you gave something to someone most in my court believe doesn't exist. You don't speak." The king smiles faintly. "You are either foolish or ready." He gestures to the cup of wine. "Drink, then rest. Tomorrow, you begin again." You nod once and sit. You don't remember the wine's taste, only that it was warm and full and lingered long after you set the cup down. The room, dimly lit and quiet as a tomb, wrapped around you like dusk. The king did not speak again that night. He simply nodded once, and a silent attendant guided you away, not back through the palace halls, but down a narrow stairwell carved from cold stone. You expected a cell, or maybe a shrine. Instead, you found a bed, a simple one mattress on a platform, clean linens, a folded robe placed neatly at the end. You slept, deeply. And when you woke, it was not to a summons, but to the sound of water, a fountain, somewhere nearby, murmuring like a half-remembered lullaby. There was no guard at your door, no lock, only a narrow corridor that led to a courtyard of white marble and orange trees, sun-drenched and buzzing faintly with bees. You stepped into it barefoot, the cool tile a surprise against your skin. Waiting for you was the same man from the night before, the one who had taken the clay tablet. He offered no greeting, just a fresh set of travel clothes and a light breakfast bread, olives, goat cheese, and a cup of something gently spiced. Afterward, he handed you a scroll, unsealed, unlabeled, read it. He said simply, "You did." It was written in plain Persian script, short, to the point. "The satrap in Sardis has strayed. Observe and confirm. You will be watched. You will not be trusted. You must not fail." At the bottom, a symbol. A falcon diving, wings tight to its body, the seal of the Royal Intelligence Chamber. The man watched you read it, then said, You've now crossed a line. There's no uncrossing it. You nodded, not out of fear, but because somewhere deep down, you already knew. You had known the moment the satrap in Bactra asked if you wanted to read what wasn't yours. You've become more than a messenger. You are now a carrier of silence, a witness, a test. He handed you a satchel with 2 scroll cases, one sealed, one blank. What you write, he said, must match what they say, or contradict it. Either way, we'll know what matters. You left that afternoon. Your horse was a bay mare this time, swift and nimble, with a copper tag braided into her mane. The tag bore your name, not your given one, but the name the roads had given you, Barzad. Not many knew it, fewer still used it, but it had weight now, and a shadow. You rode west towards Sardis, the old capital, the western jewel of the empire, home to goldsmiths and poets and politics that often shimmered like silk but cut like knives. It was far nearly 1,500 miles, and the road ahead promised heat, suspicion, and eyes in every alley. But this time, you weren't riding in haste. You were riding to see. At the first relay station, the keeper glanced at your sash and raised an eyebrow. "Long way to Sardis," he said. "Most couriers avoid the coast this time of year." You smiled mildly. "I've never minded the sea breeze." He laughed. "Careful. That breeze brings trouble." You slept there only briefly, not in the common room, but in a side chamber, where a candle had already been lit. A folded map waited beside your blanket. No note, just the routes marked in red ink, 2 possible approaches to Sardis. One went through the main merchant roads, crowded and obvious. The other traced a quieter path, older stations, abandoned villas, hidden wells. You chose the second. Along the way, you passed signs of shifting tides, villages where taxes had tripled, temples boarded shut, stations where fewer horses stood in the stables. Some roads had grown dusty from disuse, not because they were unnecessary, but because fewer people dared travel them. At one stop, a former courier recognized you. You didn't know his name, but he knew yours. He said nothing about the satchel, only looked at it once, then said, "So it's your turn now." You asked what he meant. He shook his head. "They test us in layers. The first time, they watch if you break. The second time, they watch if you bend others." You asked about the third time. He didn't answer, just handed you a bag of dates and walked away. On the 6th day, you entered a city that smelled of salt and stone. You'd reached the edge of the western provinces, where Sardis stood proud but restless, its towers gleaming in the light, its markets loud, its rumors louder. You arrived with dust on your cloak and the posture of someone ordinary, which is exactly what they expected. At the city gates, you gave your name to the guards, not Barzad, your old name, the one written in fading ink on your earliest courier token. The man checked his list, grunted, and waved you through. Inside, Sardis was all color and motion, silk flapping in stalls, gold glinting in the corners of merchants' smiles. Laughter and lies traded in equal measure. You passed masked dancers performing in a courtyard, a man preaching under a fig tree, a child carrying a scroll longer than his body. You moved unnoticed. That night, you stayed at a guest house just off the main square. Clean walls, quiet corners, no questions. You opened the blank scroll and began to write. Not about what you'd seen yet, but what you felt. There was unrest here, not a fire, not a rebellion, something softer, a pulling apart, a slow unraveling, and you were going to follow the thread. Morning in Sardis arrives with a golden hush. The city stirs slowly, like a cat stretching in sun-drenched windows. From your corner room, you hear the calls of water vendors echo off tiled roofs, and the distant clatter of mule carts beginning their daily loops through the narrow lanes. You sit cross-legged on a mat, eyes half closed, mind sharpening like a blade left soaking in oil. You're not just watching now, you're weaving, because observation, here, is not passive, it's a craft. The satrap of Sardis is known for generosity, grand feasts, open temples, a palace where the public is invited to present grievances on certain days. But there's something else beneath it all, something that doesn't show up in records or reports. You're here to find it. You leave the guest house with your sash hidden under a merchant's cloak. Your satchel is empty except for the blank scroll in the second, sealed one. You don't look like a courier anymore. You look like someone the guards would nod at, then forget. And that's exactly what you want. The first days pass slowly. You drift through the markets, sit in public gardens, observe the flow of coins, conversations, glances. There's a rhythm to Sardis, but it's off somehow, like a lute string pulled too tight. You see it in the eyes of the money changers, in the silence of the temple bells that should be ringing. Historians still argue whether Sardis was the most loyal jewel of the empire or its most polished threat. The city had rebelled once, long ago, and it had been rebuilt not with stone alone, but with performance, with illusion. You're starting to see the cracks in that illusion. On your third day, you find yourself seated outside a small wine shop beneath a fig tree. A group of scribes nearby argue over a shipment of papyrus that's gone missing. One claims it was delayed by storms. Another says it never existed at all. But it's not their words that catch your attention. It's the man who listens. He's older, wearing a robe dyed with faded saffron, clean hands. He says nothing, but he watches them the way you've been trained to watch carefully, without blinking. When he notices you looking, he raises his cup slightly, not in greeting, but acknowledgement. The next day, you see him again. This time, at the public hearing in the outer courtyard of the palace. The satrap sits on a low platform, flanked by two advisors, listening to villagers speak of taxes, broken roads, and a missing grain shipment that no one can explain. The saffron-robed man is in the back, arms folded, still watching. You report none of this in your scroll. Not yet. Instead, you begin to build a pattern. You visit the same spice seller each morning and ask the same question: has the price changed? It has, not by much, but it shifts daily too erratic to be trade-related. You start marking coin exchanges in the Eastern Bazaar and notice something stranger. Silver coins are moving faster than gold, not in quantity, but urgency, like people want to get rid of them. On the fifth day, you hear a name whispered for the first time: Lihaz, not a noble, not a soldier, not in the official records, but in the alleys and tea houses. That name carries weight. A merchant, a lender. No one says for sure. You track the pattern of traders leaving the city. Sardis is a hub, people come and go. But you count more than 20 departures in 2 days. All westbound, all minor traders, all with connections to one estate, a warehouse just outside the city wall. Registered to a minor house, once loyal to the previous satrap. You ride out that evening. The warehouse is not abandoned, but it looks like it wants to be. Ivy climbs one side. The paint on the door is peeling. A single torch burns low at the entrance. You don't knock, you walk straight in. Inside, a scribe sits at a desk, writing. 2 guards lean against a wall. There are no crates, no goods, just scrolls stacked high, unmarked. The scribe looks up, startled, then pauses. He doesn't ask who you are. Too early, he says quietly. For what you reply, he smiles, but not kindly. Nothing, he says. Wrong day. You leave without confrontation, but not before you notice the seal on one scroll, a hawk, diving. The same seal that marked your instruction from Susa. The warehouse is not a business. It's a signal post. You return to the city and write that night. The scroll fills quickly. You mark names, times, faces, the saffron-robed man, the shifting coin values, the unmarked scrolls. You don't accuse, you don't assume. You report, but you also hesitate, because something about this mission feels too clean, as if your discovery was expected, as if someone wanted this information to surface. The next day, you return to the fig tree by the wine shop. The man in saffron is already there. He waves you over. You sit. You're the one from Bactra, he says. You don't respond. He sips his wine. Do you know why you're really here? He asks. You say nothing. He leans in slightly. The satrap has enemies, some in Susa, some closer. If you leave now, with what you've written, It will serve them, not the king. You frown. And if I stay, he shrugs. You might learn more, or vanish. Sardis has a way of forgetting things that move too fast. You watch his eyes, steady, calm, not afraid. I carry what I'm given, you say carefully. He chuckles. That's what all of us say. Until the road changes under our feet. You leave him there. The fig tree behind you sways gently in the breeze. And for the first time in Sardis, you wonder if you're the courier or the message. You don't sleep that night. You lie on the woven mat in your guest house room, staring at the slats in the ceiling, watching shadows move with the flickering of a candle that's long since burned out. Your pack rests against the wall, scrolls hidden within, untouched, the sealed one, the written one, both waiting. Your thoughts aren't on either. They're on the fig tree, and the man in saffron. You replay every word he said slowly, like a verse you're trying to memorize. Not because you doubt him, but because he didn't lie. And that's what unsettles you most. The satrap's enemies, the subtle push to write a report, the ease with which you found the unmarked scrolls in that warehouse. It all feels too orchestrated. Not like a trap, exactly, but a performance. Someone wanted you to see what you saw, and someone else wanted you to report it. You rise before dawn, not out of duty but clarity, because the road has changed again. You wrap your sash inside your cloak, hide your courier mark, and take the longer path to the palace. Not through the public courtyard, but through the market lanes that weave behind the spice stalls and flower carts. It's still early. The city yawns and stretches around you. Few people are moving, which is why the guard at the rear gate notices you. He doesn't stop you, though. He nods. He was told you'd come. Inside, you're led down a quiet corridor toward an antechamber tiled in green and gold. A servant young, eyes downcast, brings you a cup of water and disappears without a word. You wait a long time, just enough for the silence to become its own kind of test. Then the satrap arrives. He's younger than you expected, taller. His robe is simple, undyed, loosely tied, no jewels, no guards, just him. He gestures to the seat across from him. You sit. You've been thorough, he says. His voice is smooth, calm, neither warm nor cold. You remain silent. You saw the scrolls, he continues. You saw the warehouse. You saw the coins move, the traders leave, and I assume, he adds, you've written it all down. You nod once. He leans back, studying you. You believe I'm betraying the empire. You answer slowly. I believe you're building something inside it. A pause. Then, a smile. Not proud, not cruel. Just a crease of understanding. I am, he says, because it's failing. He stands, walks to the far wall, and lifts a tapestry to reveal a narrow window. Beyond it, the city stretches wide rooftops glinting, people stirring, smoke rising from ovens. The roads are cracking, he says quietly. Taxes rise, not to fund the empire, but to patch holes in palaces. Priests argue in marble halls, while couriers ride half-blind into ambushes. Do you know how many riders we've lost in the last year? You don't. 17, he answers for you. Not to rebels, not to storms, to silence, orders that contradict, routes that lead nowhere, roads that no longer belong to the king. He turns. I've built something parallel, he says, a thread beside the old thread. Not to overthrow, not yet, but to preserve the message. You look at him, harder now, searching. You knew I'd find it. He nods. I made sure you would. Why? Because I needed to know what you'd do with it. You study his eyes. There's no threat in them, no fear either. Some scrolls, he says, should be carried by people who don't just obey, but choose. He steps closer. So choose, he says. Report what you saw, or stay. Carry this. He doesn't offer money or promise power, just the truth. And a scroll, unsealed, folded, thin. You don't open it, you nod once, and leave. But you don't go back to the guest house. You walk straight to the fig tree. The man in saffron is already there. He hands you a satchel, smaller than before, lighter. There's a man in Ecbatana, he says, old, sharp, disillusioned, but loyal to the idea of the empire, not its throne. You take the satchel. The scroll is for him. No, he smiles faintly. You raise an eyebrow. There's nothing inside, he adds, not yet, and then he looks at you differently, not as a courier, but as a thread in the loom, a knot in the fabric. You're the message now. You ride east, past the edges of Sardis, through roads both old and new. You pass waystations that are quiet, now emptied of horses, their walls marked with strange symbols. A hawk scratched into the lintel, a sun on the floor. You recognize them, not official, but intentional. You carry no sealed scroll, only the truth and a story. Your story. At one station, a girl asks why you travel alone. You smile, I don't. You say, she looks around. There's no one with you. You shake your head. Not anymore. But you feel them, every rider who carried silence, every name carved into old stones, every whisper that shaped the road you now follow. When you arrive in Ecbatana, you find the old man easily. He lives beside the archives, in a house with a crooked roof and birds nesting in its shutters. He doesn't ask for your name, just waves you inside. You sit across from him at a low table, and for the first time since this began, you speak without code, without secrecy. You tell him everything, not just what you saw, but what you chose. He listens. When you finish, he leans back and exhales softly. Then, without a word, he takes a scroll from his robe and slides it across the table. It's blank, and you understand. He lights a candle, hands you ink, you dip the brush, and begin to write. The ink flows smoothly, a deep, quiet black. It spreads across the scroll in gentle strokes, each word steady, each line deliberate. You don't rush. This isn't a courier's report, written hastily between stations with sweat-stained fingers. This is something else entirely, a record, a thread in the tapestry. You begin with what you know, the satrap in Sardis, the performances behind his power, the warehouse that hummed with secrets no one named, the coins that move faster than truth, the names whispered behind wine cups and beneath fig trees. But you also write about the man in saffron, the choice he gave you, the silence he carried, the strange weight of trust placed in your hands without demand or fear. You do not accuse, you do not absolve, you observe. By the time you set the brush down, the candle has burned low, and outside, the sky has shifted to the soft blue of early dusk. The old man reads your scroll in silence. His eyes move steadily, rarely blinking. When he finishes, he folds the parchment and seals it with wax, not a royal seal, not a known insignia, just a blank imprint, a smooth circle, no name. You ask softly. He looks at you. Some truths travel farther when they arrive with no one to blame. You nod. He places the scroll inside a satchel lined with goat leather and sets it aside. Then he gestures to a second mat on the floor, where tea has been poured without you noticing. You sit again. He watches you as you drink. You remind me of someone, he says. Too curious, too stubborn, carried too much too young. You raise an eyebrow. Ashan, you ask. He smiles faintly, but doesn't answer. Instead, he rises, slower than before, and walks to a shelf filled with scrolls. Not government records, not courier logs, just personal scrolls unlabeled, organized by no pattern you can see. He pulls one free and hands it to you. You unroll it. The handwriting is familiar, yours, but not your own. You read the first few lines and realize it's your story, your route, your choices, written before you made them, not in detail, but close enough to freeze your breath. You look up. I don't understand. The old man settles back onto his mat. You followed a path that someone walked before. Their story mirrored yours. Different cities, different kings, but the same core. He leans forward. A messenger isn't just someone who carries the word. He says, sometimes they are the word, a reminder, a test, a chance. You unroll the scroll further. At the end, there's a single line, written in faded ink. The one who reads this is ready. You set it down slowly. Who wrote this, you ask? But the old man has already stood again. This time, he moves toward a narrow door hidden behind a curtain. He pushes it open to reveal a stairwell leading down into the stone. Come, he says. You follow. The air below is cool, dry. Dust swirls in the lamplight. At the base of the stairs, a corridor opens into a chamber with walls lined in clay tablets and fragments of ancient maps. Some etched with names you know, some marked with symbols never taught in the courier lodges. The old man points to the center of the room. A single stone pedestal holds an object wrapped in cloth. You unwrap it carefully. It's a medallion, bronze, worn smooth, with one clear carving of falcon diving, wings tucked tight, the symbol from Susa, the symbol from the warehouse in Sardis, the symbol from the beginning. But on the back, there's something new. Not a name, a question. Are you still only a courier? You close your fingers around the medallion, and you understand. This isn't about carrying messages. This is about becoming one. You look at the old man. What happens now? He smiles gently. Now you carry a different kind of scroll. He hands you a blank parchment, a fresh satchel, and a new seal, no wax. Just a cord dyed in two colors, blue and saffron. You ride tonight, he says. Where? He tilts his head. You'll know. The road will tell you. Outside, night has fallen. The stars are sharp in the sky, and the moon hangs like a lantern above the eastern hills. You mount your horse, not the mare you came with, but a new one, dark as river stone, already saddled, already waiting. The satchel is light, but your purpose is heavier than ever before. As you ride from Ekbatana, the city glows behind you like an ember. The road stretches ahead quiet, open, endless, but now you no longer fear the silence. You are part of it. You are its voice. And as the hoofbeats echo beneath the stars, you say nothing, because the message is in motion, and you are carrying everything it means. The road hums beneath your horse's hooves like a drum beat only you can hear. Not loud, not fast, but steady, persistent like something alive, murmuring just under the surface of the earth. The night wraps around you in stillness. Crisp air rushes past your face. And for the first time in a long while, you're not racing towards something, nor fleeing from it. You're simply riding with it. The medallion hangs beneath your tunic, cool against your chest. You haven't looked at it again, but you feel its weight with every breath. A question pressed into bronze. Are you still only a courier? You don't have an answer. Not yet. The satchel bounces softly at your side, corded in blue and saffron, the colors of opposite roads crossing in a single thread. You haven't opened the scroll. You don't even know if there is one inside. You were told the road would tell you where to go, so you listen. By morning, you reach a crossroads, one of the few old enough that the signs are carved in stone rather than painted wood. 3 directions west toward Sardis, north toward Rage, east toward the Zagros passes. You dismount and sit on a flat rock beside the milestone. You sip water, chew a bit of dried apricot, and watch the sky change. Clouds gather slowly to the north. The wind carries the scent of pine and something faintly metallic iron, perhaps, or the aftertaste of thunder. A rider passes in the distance, traveling east. He does not see you, but his posture tight shoulders, satchel bound close to his hip, tells you he's one of yours. A fellow courier, still on the older routes. You wonder what he's carrying, and who he still thinks he's carrying it for. The scroll remains unopened. You mount again, letting your horse choose the direction. She takes the northern road. You smile, not because it makes sense, but because it feels right. You pass through hills that rise like slow waves. The trees are thicker here, cypress and pine, their roots twisted like sleeping hands. Birds call in sharp bursts overhead. You see no towns, only the ruins of watchtowers, broken walls covered in ivy. And once in a while, an old relay post, long abandoned, its roof collapsed, its hearth cold. At one of these stations, you find a mark on the door, a circle within a circle, carved deep. Inside, the walls are covered in soot and charcoal, but someone has left a small basket in the corner, bread wrapped in cloth, a flask of clear water, and a piece of folded parchment. You unfold it. 3 words. Keep your silence. No signature, no instruction, but you feel its message all the same. You eat, drink, rest a while beneath the beams that creak when the wind shifts. You leave the bread's last piece behind, tucked back into the cloth, a kind of thank you, then onward. As you ride, the forest closes around you. The road becomes less road and more memory, faint indentations in the earth. Familiar only to those who've ridden them often enough to dream them. You lose track of days. Or maybe they lose track of you. Morning and night become suggestions rather than facts. But you're not lost. You're following something. One evening, you reach a clearing shaped like a bowl, with a pool at the center. The water is glassy, unmoving. Trees ring the edges like quiet sentries. The light is soft here, golden. You dismount and approach the pool. There's no sound, only your reflection and the satchel. You kneel and open it. Inside is a single scroll, unsealed, blank. But folded inside the parchment is a scrap of older material, papyrus, yellowed, with a message scrawled in the uneven, rushed script. If you've come this far, you know the truth cannot be carried, only lived. You sit back on your heels, you read it again, then again. It doesn't shock you, it settles, like a stone dropped into still water. You breathe deeply and feel the air shift. The wind picks up, not much but enough to scatter leaves across the surface of the pool, enough to remind you the road never stops, even when the feet do. That night, you light a fire from dry branches and sleep beside it without fear. When you wake, the scroll is gone, and in its place is a new medallion, silver this time, etched with 2 falcons, circling one another. You don't ask how it got there. You hang it beside the first. You ride again, now with no map, no scroll, no order, only presence. You visit stations thought long abandoned. In each, you leave nothing. And yet something always appears after a fresh piece of flint, a new brush, an untouched flask. These are not gifts. They are agreements, shared rituals between people who've never met but walk the same invisible road. You begin to meet others like you. Not many, not often. A woman with gray in her braid who shares no words, only a glance and the same cord blue and saffron around her satchel. A man with a limp who tends to a broken mile marker, brushing away moss like revealing the past one stone at a time. You pass, you nod, you continue. At times, you wonder if the king remembers you, or if you were ever meant to return. But then you realize you did, not to a city, but to yourself, to the silence that speaks, to the road that listens. And one day when the rains pass and the grass grows thick again beneath your horse's hooves, you arrive at the edge of a new village, unnamed on any map. Children run beside your horse, laughing. One of them points and says, "Look, a royal messenger." You smile, and for the first time in your life, you say, "Not quite." The village is small, barely more than a handful of stone homes clustered around a square with no statue, no fountain, no mark of wealth or nobility. Just the scent of warm bread wafting from clay ovens and the sound of goats arguing over who gets to stand in the shade. You dismount slowly, letting your legs remember how to walk again. Children scatter ahead of you like starlings, their laughter ringing out like bells. An old woman with a face lined by 100 seasons watches you from a stool, her hands busy weaving a basket. She doesn't ask who you are, she doesn't need to. The blue and saffron cord at your side speaks louder than your face ever could. You tie your horse beneath the only tree in the square, an olive twisted by time and wind, and step inside the nearest building, with a door half open. Inside, it's cool, dim, and quiet. A man sits cross-legged by a low hearth, stringing dried herbs into a bundle. He glances up. His eyes are sharp, but his body is at ease. "You took the long way," he says simply. You shrug. "I didn't know there was a short one." He chuckles softly. "That's how you know you're one of us?" He gestures to the floor. You sit. He passes you a piece of flatbread, still warm. There is no talk of missions, no exchange of scrolls, no mention of titles, satraps, or empires. For the first time in a long while, you're just two people sharing silence in a room filled with the scent of herbs and firewood. Eventually, he speaks again. "There are others like this place," he says. "Outposts, stations, homes, whatever you want to call them. They're not marked on maps, but they exist. Anchors for the old ways, before roads had names." You nod. "I've seen some." He studies you. "Then you know we don't carry orders. We carry reminders." You lean back against the wall, letting that settle. "There are things this empire forgets." He continues. "With every new stone, every golden statue, every rewritten law. They build taller, wider, louder, but the truth what it was, that's quieter. It hides in these places." He taps the floor with 2 fingers. You think of the broken mile markers you passed, the abandoned courier posts, the medallions, the scrolls that vanished after being read, the one you wrote that was never meant for a king. "Who built all this?" you ask quietly. He smiles. "We did. Before we knew we were doing it." You stay the night, not because you're tired, but because rest, here, feels sacred. You eat stew thick with barley and fennel. You listen to stories told not as legends, but as memories passed hand to hand. You help repair a shutter, mend a sandal strap, sit by the fire while someone plays a reed flute with more breath and melody. In the morning, the man gives you a parcel, wrapped in old linen, tied with a knot that only a courier would recognize. You ask no questions. He only says, "It goes north." You nod. You leave. The road north is narrow, but firm. You pass shepherds, merchants, a pair of traveling performers who tell riddles in exchange for figs. None of them ask your name. Some glance at the cord on your satchel and nod. Others say nothing but step aside, like the road itself makes room for what you carry. By midday, you reach a fork in the road. One path climbs toward a mountain pass veiled in mist. The other cuts through a grove of apricot trees. You don't pause to consider. You take the mountain path. The wind is colder up here. Your horse climbs carefully, hooves clinking softly against loose stone. The sky narrows as the cliffs close in. You pass a set of carved steps leading up into the rocks, almost hidden behind ivy. You dismount, follow them. At the top is a platform, flat, circular, open to the sky, and on it sits a woman. She wears a gray cloak. Her back is to you. You say nothing, but she speaks. You brought it. You step forward and offer the parcel. She unwraps it carefully. Inside is a scroll not imperial, not formal, just a few lines, inked in a precise hand. She reads it, nods once, and then burns it, not with fire from a torch, but from a small ember she carries in a bronze dish. The flame curls around the parchment like it knows its purpose. She doesn't look at you as it burns, but she does say, "Do you understand now?" You don't answer. Not right away. Then you say, "I think so." She turns slightly, just enough for you to see her face lined, not with age, but with time. The kind of time that only lives in silence and long roads. "You carry things that don't fit on scrolls," she says. "You are the message. You are the thread." You nod. "I'll go back," you say softly, "to the others." She stands. "No," she replies. "You'll go forward." You descend the mountain as dusk begins to settle. The wind carries the scent of snow. You ride until stars prick the sky, the trees thinning around you. And just as the road curves west again, you see it. A relay station, not a ruin, not abandoned, lit, alive. You approach slowly, and there, standing by the door, is a boy no older than 16. He holds out a satchel. It's simple, worn, but it bears a new cord, red and blue. He offers it to you without a word. You take it, and as you ride away, you know the road has no end, only messages and the people willing to carry them. The satchel rides light against your hip, barely shifting with each step of the horse beneath you. Yet the moment your fingers brush that red and blue cord, something in your chest stirred, not surprise, not even expectation, just recognition. Another thread in the loom, another chapter in a message you still don't fully understand but no longer need to. You travel through open highlands now, where the air is thinner and the winds come without warning. The sky stretches so wide it seems to press down on the earth, folding the horizon into something intimate. You pass stone cairns set along the ridges, some freshly stacked, others worn and tumbled, waymarks for those who read silence better than ink. The satchel contains no scroll, not at first, just a small pouch of ink, a brush, and a square of folded linen that smells faintly of cardamom and smoke. You understand. This time, you are not delivering someone else's words. You are meant to write your own, but not yet. Not until you've seen. By the second day, you pass through a small settlement built beside a mineral spring. The air smells like sulfur and iron, and white steam lifts from the earth in quiet pillars. An old woman tending a row of clay jars nods as you pass. She doesn't call out, doesn't question, but as you water your horse at the spring, she walks over and places a single dried fig in your hand. For the road, she says. That night, you make camp beneath a leaning cedar, its branches bent like the arms of an old friend waving you onward. The stars are sharp overhead, and the wind hums in the grass. You write your first word on the blank scroll, listening. You don't write more. The rest will come. In the morning, a storm waits on the horizon, heavy and purple, dragging the sky behind it like a curtain. You ride into it anyway, pulling your cloak tighter, bracing against the sting of rain. The roads vanish beneath mud and water, and your horse slows to a crawl. It's near midday when you spot the tower, stone, square, unlit, half swallowed by the hillside and surrounded by wind-flattened grasses. You approach cautiously, leading your horse. At first, you think it's empty. Then you see the smoke, faint, whispering from the roof. You knock once. A voice replies. Step lightly, inside. The tower smells of cedar ash and lamp oil. A man kneels by a fire pit, feeding thin strips of bark into the flames. He looks up briefly, then returns to his task. He doesn't ask your name. He doesn't need to. There's room in the loft, he says, and tea. You ascend a narrow ladder to a wooden platform just beneath the roof. There's a mat, a blanket, and a small window that peers out into the gray hills below. You remove your satchel, your cloak, and sit cross-legged as steam rises from a cup already waiting. You sip. It tastes like ginger and smoke, and something bitter you can't quite name. Later, the man joins you. He places a clay tablet between you, not to read, to touch. Carved into its surface are two falcons circling one another, same as the medallion you now wear. Beneath them, a sun flanked by 3 dots. You place your hand over the symbol and wait. The man does the same. Nothing changes, but something is acknowledged. You're writing your scroll now, he says, voice barely above the wind pressing at the shutters. You nod. How did you know you're not carrying anything else? He pours more tea. Do you know where you're going? He asks. No. He smiles. That's how you know you're close. That night, you write again. They will forget the road before they forget the sound it made beneath their feet. You don't know where the line came from. It arrived, fully formed, as if carried by someone else. You write 2 more words beside it. Remember together. In the morning, the man is gone. Only the clay tablet remains. You take it with you. Days pass. Villages blur by. Some welcome you with food and stories. Others ignore you entirely. One offers you a place by the fire without ever asking what you're doing. You begin to notice small things, painted marks on door frames, braided cords hanging from rafters, ink stains on hands too clean for farming. The network is wider than you imagined, quieter than rumor, softer than law, but it's real. In one hamlet, a boy no older than 10 runs up to you and places a bundle of herbs in your hand. "From my mother," he says. "She said you'd understand." You do. They're for ink. That night, you finish the scroll. You don't roll it. You don't seal it. You fold it once, press it flat, and place it beneath your saddle, not to hide it, but to carry it close. When you finally reach the riverlands, the world has turned golden again. Wheat waves in wide fields, and herons fly low above the reeds. The sky is open, gentle, and in the distance, you see the tower, not the stone one, but one made of wood, curved like a reed basket, standing watch beside the bend in the river. At its base, 3 people wait. You don't know their names, but they wear cords of different colors. They don't ask what you carry. They only gesture you forward. You dismount. Place the scroll into the hollow between stones where hundreds have rested before. The woman steps forward. You'll stay. You shake your head. I ride tomorrow. Where to? You smile. Where they still forget. She nods. Hands you a new satchel. No scroll inside. Only a single word. Written on a strip of fabric. Begin. You sleep near the river that night, wrapped in the sound of reeds swaying and water whispering its slow, endless song. The fire beside you has burned down to soft embers, glowing faintly in the dark like old truths. The satchel rests beneath your head, and though it carries nothing now, it feels heavier than ever, weighted with what you've seen, where you've been, and what you chose to become. Above you, the stars spread wide and quiet. You trace familiar constellations, names passed down by riders long before your time. Some of them are still whispered at outposts, scratched onto stone, hidden in the margins of scrolls that never make it to the court. They are not myths, they are memories. In the distance, a nightbird calls. You let your eyes close. The wind picks up and brushes past your cheek like a hand. And in that soft, final moment before sleep, you feel it more than silence, more than purpose. It's presence. The realization that the road was never just stone and dust. It was a conversation, a question, passed forward, and you were part of the answer. You will ride again. That much you know. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Another satchel, another scroll, another name on another thread in the tapestry. But tonight, you are still. And that stillness is not empty. It's sacred. The message is still moving, somewhere, quietly, through someone else. And for now, that's enough. The stars breathe above you, the earth hums below, and the road waits. It always waits. But it also remembers who walked it with care. End of script. Sweet dreams.